The first question is, why do you feel qualified to serve as a county supervisor?
Thank you so much for that question. It seems like my trajectory has really set me up to take this challenge. I've been serving the public for more than 25 years. I've worked in nonprofits, in commissions, and in local government as well. I have a master's in public administration, as well as a bachelor's in human development and early childhood. But more importantly, I have the passion and really the want to change systems and to make our community a better community for future generations. We've lost too many of our families so far to Central Valley, and I want San Jose to continue to be a place where people choose to stay and raise families. That's really important to me.
I have one. Okay. Johnny, why do you feel qualified to serve as a county supervisor?
Well, I can tell you that I served as a San Jose City Council member for 8 years. And during my tenure, I actually worked on saving taxpayer money. A lot of people get into politics to spend money. When I came into office, we were facing huge budget deficits. Our libraries were closed 3 days a week. Our parks were closed 3 days a week. When I got into office, I sat down with staff and took a look at our indebtedness. We had $2 billion worth of bonds, and we were paying more than 5.5% annual interest rates on those things. And the current rate at the time when I got into office was a little over 3.5%. So I sat down with our finance department and we discussed refinancing the debt. And of course, she did it over the next 6 years. She's currently our city manager, and we are now saving $32 million per year on the difference in interest rates that we were paying before I got into office and after I got into office. I have looked for many ways to save money, including looking for not allowing us to lease out facilities when we had open facilities. We helped open the police substation in South San Jose at the Great Oaks Parkway. And of course, before I left office, our police force had gone from 900 to 1,150. Our parks and libraries were open 6 to 7 days a week. And I'm very proud of the results that I have championed at the city council during my tenure. And I think I'm very qualified because I have new ideas on ways that we can make the county more accountable, the county more efficient, and the county more responsible for the services that they're supposed to be doing.
And we'll start with Johnny. There's been a significant increase in the county budget over the past 10 years. Is it justified, and what would you do about it?
Well, the budget is increased annually by the taxpayers. I think we're taxed too much, quite frankly. And one of the things that I wouldn't do is renew some of the expiring taxes. There's several expiring taxes that are coming up on your property taxes. Measure A is one of them as well. So I would also look for ways, as I just said, we need to look for ways to operate efficiently. We need to look at, for example, in the county's audit on health. Last year alone, we ended up with $102 million extra in mental health monies. $102 million. Meanwhile, we had 180 people in the last 6 months die on our streets from overdoses. These are issues that I think we need to spend our money wisely. And I'm not talking about saving money. I'm talking about spending the money that we have and getting results for the money that we have. We also turned down hundreds of millions of dollars. We delayed it from the county's new, the state's new law that is called the care court system. The counties that did accept it, like San Francisco and San Diego and Los Angeles, got $700 million to implement programs that will help get people off of our streets. And our county said, no thank you, at least not for the next couple of years. We need to make sure we get stuff done. We need to make sure we get the money from our state, and we need to make sure that we're spending the money wisely and getting results for it. That's what you'll get from me, somebody who's going to be a champion for results, somebody who's going to open their mouth and speak up and make changes.
Sylvia, there's been a significant increase in the county budget over the past 10 years. Is it justified, and what would you do about it?
Right. You know, what we're doing right now is we are paying for the mistakes of those people that made policies to take away investments in our community. We don't have any more mental health institutions. That's why you see a lot of homeless in our community. So you think that the money that you save by taking away a resource is going to save everybody else money, but it actually incurs debts for future generations. That's what we're paying for, folks, right now. I love to save money. I do that for my own family. I do that for our city of San Jose. All of those savings that Councilmember Khamis mentioned, I supported all of those. Absolutely. We should be saving taxpayer dollars. We also need to make smart investments. One of those is public safety. I supported public safety, and I did not support the pension reform. When I first was coming in and campaigning in 2016, I supported the measure that corrected it. My opponent did not. So if we are going to talk about public safety and accountability and saving money, some of those decisions that you've made before have created quite a loss for our public. People have been unsafe, and now we're paying dollars that we shouldn't have to bring back police officers into our city.
Sylvia, what are your top 3 priorities?
Sure, children and families is my top priority, public safety, and then the recovery, both economic and social and emotional. Those are the priorities that I think that I speak to all of our communities, regardless of whether you're in South County or you're here in Evergreen. We all care about the housing crisis. We care about the unhoused who are out there, and we're trying to figure out what's the best solution, right? And I think the city of San Jose and the county, when they work together, they get a lot of things done. For example, during the pandemic, I worked with Supervisor Chavez to purchase digital devices and hotspots for our children and our community as we were all going online for everything. And a lot of families didn't have those. They didn't have secure or stable internet, and they didn't have a device to work from. So what we did is the city of San Jose, purchased the hotspots, and then the county purchased the devices. This is 2 systems working together to answer the call. And so we need to continue to do that in the future. Collaboration and establishing really good systems is really, for me, one of the key answers.
Johnny, what are your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to make a correction. I was incorrectly stated. My opponent said that I did not support Measure F. In fact, I did support Measure F, the right side thing for our pension plan, and I debated the opponents of Measure F in the highest propensity voting district, which was my voting district, District 10, and I was one of the reasons why that pension plan actually passed. Now, my top priorities would be to make sure that we take care of our growing homelessness problems by addressing the underlying root causes of homelessness, by providing inpatient medical facilities for the mentally ill, inpatient facilities for the people who are drug addicted, and using underutilized county-owned properties like the DePaul Center, for example, in Morgan Hill. It's a huge hospital that is completely underutilized and can be converted into facilities to actually help the people that need the help now. And in doing so, we can implement the new conservatorship law, care court system. And if we did that, we can actually address the root causes of homelessness. drug addiction, mental health, people leaving the prison system early. I also want to work with, hopefully, our new sheriff, Kevin Jensen, to make sure that people who are leaving the prison early are incentivized to and receive skills training while they're in prison, so that they can build on those skills while they're in prison instead of waiting until they get out of prison to learn a new skill. Right now, that's the way it's done. They're actually offered training in the reintegration program, and I want to change that training to make it before they leave, while they're in jail, instead of waiting until they get out.
Johnny, Santa Clara County suffers from extraordinarily high cost of housing, making it difficult for young families, as well as those living in middle and lower income households, to afford living here. How would you address this issue?
I have literally written several articles on reducing costs, on ways that we can increase the amount of workforce housing by buying instead of building, and not just instead. On top of building, we have not done any buying of properties. It's the fastest and cheapest way to go. We have hundreds of millions of dollars that we could be using immediately to buy apartment complexes and turn them into workforce housing immediately. We could work with JPAs. And while I was on council, I actually worked with other council members to reduce costs for things like ADUs. I believe in reducing costs, reducing taxes, reducing regulations. I think that's the best way to get something. None of us will go to Macy's where they're not having a sale, right? This is the way to incentivize building. If we want more of something, we have to reduce prices. When I first got into office, we were getting 30 ADUs. These are auxiliary dwelling units. And now we're getting 600 permits a year because we reduced the cost and reduced regulations around ADUs. And I have many, many more ideas on how to get more housing and more affordable housing.
Sylvia, Santa Clara County suffers from an extraordinarily high cost of housing, making it difficult for young families, as well as those living in middle and lower income households, to afford to live here. How will you address this issue?
Thank you. By first protecting what we already have, the inventory that we already have, so rental protections. We also need to continue to develop. I've been very supportive of development, especially and including affordable housing, but definitely market rate and middle income housing. So we have to have housing for all different levels of our community, because we want to continue to have that richness in our backyards. The other thing that we don't really talk about, but it's I think the reason that a lot of folks can't afford homes is the high cost of living and wages that just don't catch up with those high costs of living. For example, my parents were working parents. That my mom worked at the canneries during the summer, and my dad was a cook. Yet they could afford to purchase a home on the east side for $90,000. That can't happen anymore, because the wages are the same they were 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So we must also take a look at what we are paying our community so that they can actually live here.
Sylvia, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, Santa Clara County's population fell 2.6% between April 2020 and July 2021. Why do you think that is? And what are your plans for reversing that decline?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what was that?
Sure. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Santa Clara County's population fell 2.6% between 2020 and 2021. Why do you think that is? And what are your plans for reversing that decline?
Right. Well, it's exactly what I'm talking about, is that if you can't afford to live in the city that you grew up in, they have to leave. And we've seen, when we followed the trail of families who've actually exited San Jose, and we talked to the superintendents, they have told us they're all going to Central Valley because it's cheaper. I mean, it makes sense, right? You're going to go where you can afford to live. And then what do we create? We create this massive traffic jams on our freeways because there's so many folks coming in to do some of the service-oriented jobs, right? Coming from way far to actually do some of the jobs that they could have done while living here. So it's mind-boggling. I think part of that is offering programs, just like the city of Santa Fe has and the county has, so that we can have first-time home ownership, so that we can also create a pipeline of folks who are going to college or have skilled careers. We need to make sure that we take care of our San Joseans and that we honor them with opportunities, real opportunities, and not just for large businesses.
Johnny, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, Santa Clara County's population fell 2.6% between 2020 and 2021. Why do you think that is, and what are your plans for reversing that decline?
Well, I know that San Jose is a big portion of the county, but I think we need to look at the county holistically. There's a lot of parts of even District 1, Morgan Hill and Gilroy and San Martin, and a lot of those places are actually building houses, and they don't have the amount of regulations, the vast amount of regulations that San Jose has. So I do think that the cost of housing, I agree that the cost of housing is one of the debilitating factors of staying in the area. And I actually did an article on this, and you can see this on my website, johnnycampus.com, where we talked about the difference in just the taxation. In San Jose, it costs more than $170 per square foot before you stick a stick in the ground. And it takes years to get a permit. In Hollister, it takes about $65 in taxes. And in Texas, it takes about $40 per square foot. So cost is extremely important. And you can see when we actually decrease costs, people build stuff. We decrease the cost in downtown high-rise. We decrease the cost in ADUs. What did we get more of? Downtown high-rises and ADUs. If we decrease the cost of all these taxes, maybe we can get more people to encourage more builders to build homes and hopefully bring down the prices. We can also do a lot of the things that I talked about in the previous question, where we can buy a lot of these older units or even newer units as inventory for workforce housing. We also need to address crime. Crime has gone too far to the justice system has gone too far to the side of the criminal. And I have new ideas on reforming our criminal system, at least the jails in Santa Clara County. And I've worked against a lot of laws that have made us less safe, like Prop 47 and 57. I was a vocal advocate against the passage of those laws, and those laws have made us less safe. That's why I enjoy the support of 2 police unions, Morgan Hill and Gilroy. And all of our past police chiefs in the last 10 years are supporting my campaign.
Johnny, what can be done as the county supervisor to address our homeless issue?
I literally have a 6-point plan on my website on this, and I did talk about a couple of them, which is addressing the root causes of homelessness. Drug addiction, mental health, and people leaving the prison system early. If you look at the county's own statistics, 42% of people who were segregated in 2019 had mental health issues. 35% admitted to taking drugs. 27% had criminal records, and those were the ones that admitted to it. So unless you're trying to go after the root causes of homelessness, we will never reduce homelessness. My ideas are including to take county-owned properties that are underutilized. Now, you guys have heard of this. We literally, the housing trust just sold a building with a $13 million loss. It was in a newspaper this last week. There's no accountability for the money that we're spending at the county. And if you want accountability, you have to have somebody who's willing to call out the mistakes. I have been calling out the mistakes of the county for many years. On Laura's Law, for example, temporary conservatorship is something I've been striving to implement at the county level. It's a law that passed in 2002 and hadn't been implemented until 2021 to help the most severely mentally ill out there. It's time to implement conservatorship laws on a wider basis using the new care court system. That's something else that I advocate for. So I have many ideas, six on my website, to address homelessness, to actually start working on the root causes and reduce homelessness.
Sylvia, what can be done as a county supervisor to address our homeless issue?
Sure. I begin with preventing homelessness. I think that's one of the best solutions. Once you lose a home, there's no way that you can get back in there. I mean, we've seen it in the 2008 housing crisis, and how many homeowners are back into a home. They're just not. It's one of the easiest ways to prevent homelessness. Second is, we have to take a look at, if we're going to take a look at the origins of homelessness and the reasons and the causes, then we have to take a look at the cycle of poverty and how systems create those cycles of poverty, how to disrupt those, how to create pipelines for folks that have opportunities to careers that they normally wouldn't have, or educational opportunities that they normally wouldn't have. That's part of solving for homelessness. The care court is another care court. It's a specialty court. It does not change conservatorship. It's very misleading. It's one tool in the toolbox, but it's not the silver bullet. If we had a silver bullet for homelessness, we've already used it. It just doesn't exist. We have to do the hard work. And the hard work means investing in our communities, investing in our next generation. Johnny talked about reducing the cost for developers, the fees for developers. That's called a subsidy. And it's a subsidy by taxpayers to developers. How are we subsidizing those who are always going to lose their homes? How are we preventing that from happening? So we really have to take a look at what our systems are producing, is what it comes down to.
Sylvia, what actions will you take to ensure that our families feel safe and secure in our homes, neighborhoods, and parks?
Sure. Well, this is something that I've actually been really active in. Public safety is absolutely important. It really hits our community back here hard during the holidays. As you all know, you either get packages that are stolen or just, burglaries and robberies, because we're a little further away from the center of the city, and folks know that, right? Burglars know that, and they count on it in order to get away from the police officers. And so one of the things that I work really hard on is getting the robbery unit reestablished. Another area is gender-based violence. Sexual assault and rape has been on the incline for over 10 years. The greatest number of those that are impacted is not from the Me Too movement, because they're under the age of 13. So we didn't have a sexual violence unit, and I helped establish that. And we helped establish a whole work plan so that not only the city of San Jose can improve how they interact with survivors, but that we can actually increase closure rates for cases. Because we were actually trying to reduce the number of closure rates instead of increasing it. So we had to have a conversation across the aisle and across systems. We don't prosecute any of those sexual assaults, so we have to work with the system that actually does, and that's what we did. And we've been doing this for the last 3 years. I'm also doing the same process on child well-being, because as we know, there's a lot of child abuse, especially during the pandemic. Women and young girls are at a higher rate of risk of being abused.
Johnny, what actions will you take to ensure that our families feel safe and secure in our homes, neighborhoods, and parks?
Well, the number one thing that I would do is hire more sheriff's department. I know that Sylvia keeps talking about the city of San Jose and what it can do, but we have no control over the SJPD as supervisors. But what we can do is hire more sheriff's departments, and we can make sure that a jail is reformed in a way that I discussed a little bit earlier, where we actually are training inmates that are in our jails. And so before they get out, right now the system gives them training after they get out. what I would like to see is the training happening while they're in there and incentivize their early releases with, hey, you get a new skill, we let you out early. But don't let them out early if they don't get a skill. That way they can be a little bit better prepared for when they get out of jail. It's not a panacea, but it'll help us be safer. On top of that, I will fight against new laws that have, you have Prop 47, 57, 36, AB 109, so many laws that have made us less safe. I actually supported Prop 20, which actually my colleague had helped stop. I was trying to get the city of San Jose to support Prop 20 because it would have reversed some of these horrific laws that have made us less safe and made, like kidnapping a child, it made no longer a violent felony. It made assaulting a police officer no longer a violent felony. All these laws are out there and they need to be changed, and I will be a champion to start swinging the pendulum back in the favor of the victim rather than in the favor of the criminal. I just think it's important. There's no accountability anymore for people who commit crimes. It is so easily, as she discussed, to go door to door and pick up packages because unless you pick up $950 on each package, you're not going to get any significant criminal penalty. We have to change the system.
Johnny, what do you believe should be done with Reed Hillview Airport?
Well, I think we need to reopen it and make sure, we need to fix that airport. We need to imagine what it could be and keep it open. I know that my colleague has been against she's been in favor of closure based on lead studies that actually were not conclusive. She'll talk about a lead study here any second, and she'll say that poor kids are going to die from lead. The lead study came back with a 0.04 rating, and it didn't prove that it actually came from the airport. It could have been from lead pipes in people's homes. It could have been lead paint. The last study that was done on the dirt surrounding the airport was what they said that there was no increase in lead, and they actually kicked out the Eastridge Little League and told them that they were going to suffer from brain damage, that they kept playing there. And the lead study that was done on the dirt in the airport there was basically, they said that there was no increase in lead even next to the airport. So the whole reason to shut it down was lead. The planes also don't use lead anymore. So there's actually no reason to shut it down. On top of that, that is used as an emergency training, an emergency place for helicopters to fight fires on these foothills. And it's actually used to help people learn how to become pilots. And it's a very good paying job. And there's a lot of resources for kids who want to get in to become pilots and mechanics, like aerospace mechanics. It's a really good asset, and we shouldn't just throw it away. I am very much in favor of keeping it open.
Sylvia, what do you believe should be done with Reed Hillview Airport?
Thank you, and thank you for asking me that question and allowing me to answer it instead of my opponent here. And I'll clarify my position. Of course, I'm going to always be protective of our children and our families. The lead study that Johnny's referring to, or at least the piece that he's referring to, is the lead in the dirt. But that's not the problem. The problem is the lead in the air that you breathe, especially south wind. So it's not only the houses that are immediately next to the Reed Hillview, but it's also all the homes that are south wind of that. Now, the county has outlawed or made it illegal to have leaded fuel. But that doesn't mean that you can't load up somewhere else, come in, and continue to have leaded fuel. There's no regulations around that. So there's no solution around lead poisoning. And the children and the families that were tested, their blood levels for lead were close to what we find in Flint. So, I mean, if you really think it's that safe, I don't know why you didn't choose that neighborhood to move into. And I challenge you, if you really think it's that safe. And have your children grow up there.
Sylvia, what would you do to help strengthen our county's education system?
I have a son who was born at 29 weeks. And with that came some learning issues. But I think that there isn't any one of us here that has a learning issue that doesn't have a learning issue. Right? We all learn differently, right? But when you learn quite differently than other people, you start falling behind. And this is where I think our schools fail our students. Okay, so when our school districts don't provide the services at a very early age, we miss that opportunity that allows that brain of a 5-year-old to grow. 90% of the child's brain develops before the age of 6. The rest of it is up to 21 years of age. So we miss this critical opportunity because it's too expensive. It's too expensive to provide a tutor. It's too expensive to have an individualized educational plan. And many parents have gone through that. And many parents have sued our school districts in order to receive those services and programs for their children. And so what we need to begin to do is take a look at those folks who are struggling. And quite honestly, I think they should develop assessments on site. This is one of the things that actually I try to do as a school board member is encourage assessments during TK and then kinder so that you can catch kids really early on. And when you catch them really early on, the investment in those children are going to pay off dividends for the rest of their lives. You give them a chance to actually learn and keep up with the rest of the class and not create havoc or, the teachers spend most of the time disciplining those children, and then that becomes a whole cycle of discipline versus education.
Johnny, what would you do to help strengthen our county's education system?
Well, while I was a council member in the city of San Jose, we worked on a lot of coordination with the school systems. And obviously, neither the county nor the city have purview over the schools directly. But we can help out, and we did this with San Jose Promise, San Jose Learning. These are all programs that we help fund after-school programs for kids who are at risk. We help fund learning programs at libraries, free tutoring online. We have, 5K coding challenge. Our librarians, she just was magnificent. If I could steal her from the county, I would. I personally worked with the YMCA with whatever leftover monies that I have for my council budget every year. And we can work with kids that are at risk to keep them out of trouble during the summertime. We created a summertime learning program with the YMCA in my area and some of my lower income areas in Hoffman, Viamonte. And we kept those kids learning throughout the summer. We also created measurable outcomes. We tested them, the YMCA tested them, at the beginning of summer and the end of summer, and some of their reading skills have gone up dramatically. So I would definitely work with nonprofits to do after-school programs and fund some of these great nonprofits that are doing great works in the community. On top of that, I would use some of the mental health money that we were not actually using at the county level to fund some of the psychological, there's a lot of depression going on after COVID, and we need more help, especially at the high school levels. There's a lot of kids that are stressed out, and at least at Pioneer High School, they were testing out, the county was testing out programs to help kids with some of their depression and things like that. And I would definitely continue and expand those programs because I think our kids are not doing well these days after COVID, and we need to look out for them with mental health.
Johnny, what can the county county do to improve the general business environment, specifically to help the many small businesses necessary to support our community's needs?
Well, I can tell you, I'm supported by a lot of business interests because I have stood up for business interests. When the county was shutting down everything during COVID, it was difficult. Like they actually, the nursery in my own district, which was completely outdoors, was forced to shut down because they were a non-essential service, but Home Depot that had a nursery could open up. And I thought that was super unfair to do so. If I were elected, I would make sure that small business has a seat at the table. And before we make a decision about closing down businesses throughout the county, we actually talk to businesses and how can they do things more safely? We can advise them. And I wouldn't hesitate to shut down everything like the way we did in the past. I want especially small business. My own mother lost her small business during COVID because she was a hairstylist. I know you can't tell, but she was a hairstylist, and she was shut down. Then it opened up, then shut down, then she opened up, and then you know what? She just got tired of it. She just decided to give up on her small business because the county kept jerking her around. And that's not what we need to do. This is not the way to treat small businesses. We need to have small business voice at the table, and I will make sure that happens.
Sylvia, what can the county do to improve the general business environment, specifically to help the many small businesses necessary to support our communities?
Sure. In the city of San Jose, we have a recovery task force, and I think that we should have something very similar at the county level. This brings all of the stakeholders, the businesses, the nonprofits, those that are invested in our communities to think about what are the strategies that are going to work for that particular area. As a council member, I'm actually investing in our businesses. We have, I asked through the budget to establish the Tully Road, I forget the whole name, but it's the Tully Road Small Business Association. We want to establish a business association so that they can survive. They've gone through this whole pandemic and hanging on by a thread. Now they need support. And then the second thing that I did was I also secured grants for them that business association can distribute. So I'm very pro-business. We need businesses to be successful. One, because small businesses here in the city of San Jose mainly are immigrant families. And then they're family owned. And they employ quite a number of people, as we recognized during this pandemic and the loss. And I'm sorry that your mom lost her business, Johnny. That it's a shame because those are skills and talents that we have in our community that we share. So part of that is also just really organizing and making sure that we listen to the research. If there's an impact like infrastructure development that creates maybe displacement for our small businesses, then we need to make sure that we stabilize those businesses before that infrastructure begins. And continuing just to have a conversation.
And now we have two questions from the audience. So we'll start with Sylvia. The county is the primary provider of the safety net services. How will you improve the quality of safety net services at the county?
Oh, thank you for the question, because that's exactly what I intend to do. We want to make sure that the safety net is as strong as possible. And so the state is actually asking all of the counties to comply with CalAIM. And CalAIM is going to reorganize the way that each county provides services to Medi-Cal funded or Medi-Cal insured residents. And it's based on a cross-agency service framework. That means that if you go into the county for dental services, that they're going to keep your information and potentially somebody from the recreation program can access it when you sign up for recreation programs, right? You don't have to continually provide either that documentation to get maybe a lowered fee, or just the same old questions, just making it that much easier for you to register or to receive services, and reduce also some of the trauma that happens when you are a survivor and you are asking for therapy, and then you're asked the same questions all over again when you go to a different department. But more importantly, it's about one system, because the complexity of the county is just huge. These systems are so complex that they don't really talk with each other. When they don't talk with one another, they might be serving the same people, but duplicating the efforts of registration, the efforts of recruitment, and that is not efficient. So we have to take a look at how the systems can be improved, how they can be more efficient, and how they can better serve our community.
Johnny, the county is the primary provider of safety net services. How will you improve the quality of our safety net services?
Well, I can tell you, I have actually been pouring through some of the audits that have been conducted by the county itself. And I can tell you that one of the recommendations, which is part of my 6-point platform, is the creation of somebody who oversees multiple departments when it comes to the safety net system, the health and mental health services, and homelessness services. Some of the big critiques was they're putting out lots of monies from various nonprofits and vendors, but there's no accountability. So we need to increase accountability. We need to have outcome-based measurements. Is that person, properly cared for? Is that person housed? Is that person in a job training program? We need to have a cycle. So when somebody gets, let's say, out of homelessness and into housing, they stay and stabilize and become a productive citizen. So a lot of these services, the audit actually critique that they don't work together, they don't talk to each other. There are potentially a lot of duplicative services being done for the same people. So we need to take a look at that. We need to hire somebody to oversee these services. And I think that person needs to report directly, needs to be hired directly by the supervisors and not go through the county exec. We want honest, we want somebody who is not afraid of the county exec to tell us the truth when it comes to, how we're spending our money. And that, I think, can only be gained if we have a truly independent agent overseeing all these services.
And the last question, Johnny, what is your perspective on the Capital Expressway Light Rail project? What would you recommend to revitalize the VTA and to hold them accountable?
Well, I'm very much on the record on this. I think we had a debate in the primary, and I told you that back then, and I haven't changed my opinion. I literally wrote an article about this not too long ago, but it's a vanity project. I remember looking at the study, actually approved the study to see if it would make sense. And then I got off the VTA and I couldn't vote on the project after. But I can tell you this, looking at the study, the latest study, it was going to move 1,224 people a day. 1,224 people per day was going to be moved. The removal of the 2 extra lanes, the commuter lanes on Capital Expressway, each one of those lanes moves 2,000 people per hour, not per day. So actually, it can cause congestion instead of helping reduce it. And actually, hundreds of millions of dollars above where we expected it to be as well. I think there's a lot better use of our money. Light rail, we actually closed light rail. The light rail extension that used to be in my district, the one that jetted out from Oak Ridge Mall all the way to the Almaden Valley, because it didn't make financial sense. It's closed. And why are we spending more money on something that has failed over and over again? It doesn't make sense. Why do we keep throwing good money after bad? So no, I'm not in favor of that. And I would look definitely for other ways to spend our money wisely.
Sylvia, what's your perspective on the Capitol Expressway Light Rail extension, and what would you recommend to revitalize VTA and hold them accountable?
Of course, we always want to hold our elected senators who represent us at VTA accountable. One of the things that we should have asked for when we started with light rail systems is to ask ourselves a very basic question. Who actually needs and uses the light rail system or the public transportation system? And that's people who don't have cars. But what we did is we started in places where people have the luxury of cars. And they didn't use the light rail system. That's why it's failed. If they would have started on the east side where people actually use public transportation, you would have seen it be a lot more successful than what it is now. Also, I think that if it was above grade creates a lot more safety measures for our community, especially those that are in high foot traffic areas. And I'm very supportive of this extension to a light rail to Eastridge. That Eastridge Transit Center is one of the busiest transit center. Why not connect those folks to the rest of the regional transit system? To BART, to the rest of the Bay Area. Let's not worry about continuing to do more of the same, which is how do we continue to keep people in their cars and have them go faster or more per hour. What we need to do is think about how do we get people to where they need to be by using public transportation in a way that's very convenient and accessible to them. And by the way, where the chokehold is for traffic, that's around Capitol Expressway, 680 and 101, and that's where we're not losing a lane.
Okay, and now we have the closing comments, which are 2 minutes each. So we'll start with Sylvia. Oh,
Sorry, I thought you were going to say more.
Closing comments. Yes,
Closing comments,
right. Closing comments for 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share my perspective and the experience that I bring and the passion that I bring to an elected office. I really am not a politician. I've never considered myself one. I'm a public servant. That's the framework that I work from. I invested in my career, in my education, to better serve you and to better serve my community. I'm not going to go with status quo. I'm not going to go along to get along. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a lot of questions about how our systems can continue to improve, how they can be efficient, how they can be more cost effective. Because we need to spend the money where we actually need it. You can expect to have system changes with me. That's what I've done in the city of San Jose. You take a look at some of the programs that and some of the work plans that I've been doing across systems with the county. I'm already doing some of that work. So this is a very natural step for me to take in order to continue to carry on the work around public safety, gender-based violence, and the really good work on the recovery, social and emotional and economic recovery for all of our community. I would be honored to receive your vote and your support, and I hope you would consider it. Thank you.
Johnny, closing comments.
We're done?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for having us today and for allowing us to talk about the ideas that we bring into the supervisorial seat. Again, my name is Johnny Khamis. Those people don't know, I'm actually an immigrant. I came here as a young boy, 8 years old. I learned a new language. We struggled as a family. We lived in low-income housing. I put myself through college, and I built a successful business. And the only reason I got into politics is because I wanted to use my talents as a financial advisor to help the city and now the county with its financial become more financially efficient, and become better at serving the public, become more accountable. I'm running because I have new ideas on homelessness, new ideas on addressing the root causes of homelessness, new ideas on reducing crime. And looking at, we can't keep electing the same people with the same ideas and expecting different results. I stand for new ideas. That's why the Mercury News has endorsed my candidacy. That's why people of all politicals on the political spectrum have endorsed my candidacy. Because I have the passion and the new ideas. Because I'm sick and tired, like many of you, of the status quo. As a council member, we often looked at the county to help us with the problems that we face with homelessness, and we haven't seen results. It's time for new results. It's time for somebody who's going to speak up and buck the trend. So I'm hoping that all of you will support my candidacy for county supervisor. Johnny Khamis, if you want to learn about my 6-point plan, please go to my website, www.johnnykhamis.com, and I'll look forward to serving all of you as your next supervisor.
Well, now big round of applause.